Hello, podcasters, and welcome to Sexplosion. My name is Caroline Chenier, and I'm your coach on all things intimacy, relationships, sex, and superconsciousness. This is my podcast teaching you about how to sexually liberate yourself to be confident, spicy, and fun around intimacy and sex, along with learning how to build a great foundation for strong, long-lasting, and passionate relationships. This is unfiltered, uncensored, and unexpected. So today's topic is all about sex and communication. My beautiful guest and I will be discussing why sex communication is so important, why people find it difficult to discuss sex, and why communication during sex is important. And then we'll talk about the typical issues caused by non-communication and, of course, the consequences of non-communication. Then, of course, Anne always has some brilliant tips, so we'll get tips as well. So the beautiful Anne Skelton is a qualified and accredited master coach, helping people transform relationships, reignite old sparks, and reconnect with the people who are most important to them. Like me, she has been always interested in people, their relationships, and the dynamics within those relationships. So, Anne, a very, very warm and sexy welcome a second time round to Sexplosion.
Hi, Caroline. Thanks so much for having me again. I'm quite excited about this session.
So am I. I really, really appreciate you coming back on for us again. Last time we spoke about sex and marriage, and I'm delighted that you could come along again to talk about sex and communication, because we realized during that session that actually sex and communication is like a whole other area to talk about. So the first thing I'd like to ask and to discuss is, why is it so important to talk about sex?
Well, I think it's one of the things, isn't it, that people don't talk about before they embark on a serious relationship. And dating has changed over the years in that sex comes before a relationship now. So, for example, you don't decide that you're going to be together until you've had sex a few times, which is so interesting, a big change. But yeah, I think it is really important to talk about sex and to understand what it is that you like and what you don't like, because you need to be on the same song sheet.
Absolutely. And the thing is that, people find it so difficult to talk about sex. The amount of people that come to me, and mostly men actually, come to me and just say, I want to try and please my wife, but she won't talk to me. She won't even have sex with me sometimes, and they won't discuss why. It's almost as if they're scared of hurting them, scared of hurting their feelings. But at the end of the day, what is it that's causing them to not be able to discuss the sex?
I'm guessing most of the people that come to you with that issue are sort of a generation that have come from sex being a dirty thing. So we've all I know that I was brought up to understand that sex was just after marriage, that it was something that was seen as seedy and dirty if you did it before marriage. And I think that's changed. So the younger generations now don't have that. They don't have that mentality. They don't need to have that mentality. Things have changed so much. So I would say possibly younger people talk about it a lot more. But if you're talking about sort of the 40-somethings, I think you'll find that it's possibly simply because of the way they were brought up and the expectations of their parents and society on how they behave and having sex before marriage.
Yeah, you're right, because you know what? I was going to do one of these Sexplosions it was about sex and menopause, actually. And I was going to have to do that in the car, because we had to go and prepare for a choir session that we were singing. And everyone was saying to me, I was saying to them, yeah, I'll come for the beginning, but I have to go and do my Sexplosion. And they're going, well, obviously I didn't call it Sexplosion, I called it Sex Podcast. And they said, oh, so what's your podcast about? Now, bearing in mind, all these people are around my age and older. And I said, oh, it's about sex and menopause. And they went, oh, and they all went, oh, and they didn't know what to say or what to do. And in fact, when I said to people later, when I came back and they said, oh, what were you doing? They would be laughing about it. It's almost like it's something they just cannot talk seriously about. It's really frustrating, because I am so open and so, able to speak, that about it in general. I mean, yeah, it has happened to me before where I found it difficult. Like there's somebody that rang me up once and she said, look, I'm asking you, Caroline. She said, I don't normally talk about this, but I'm giving you a call because my fella, he will do everything but do what I want. She said, I've told him. I've not, no, she didn't say. She said he'll go down and he'll go on the side. He's not actually on the clit kind of thing. She said,
Right.
and she said, oh, she said, I don't know what to do. I said, just tell him. She said, oh, she said, do you think I said, yes, just tell him. The poor sod has got no idea that he's doing it in the wrong bit between the leg and the flap, instead of
Yeah.
inside the flap. And it's like, how can you go through life, like, for him, not realizing that he's in the wrong bit? And that, I think that was with his hand, by the way. It wasn't the mouth, it was his hand. And for also for somebody not actually saying, look, you're in the wrong bit there. I mean, you don't have to speak, right? You don't have
No.
to speak. Communication can be verbal, body language, like all she has to do, wouldn't you agree, Anne? All you've got to do is move the hand into the right bit, right?
Yeah.
It's not rocket science, but some people find it, they're lying there like waiting and waiting for them to move it to the right bit. And you know what? Some of the most functional sexual relationships are where couples can just talk. But it's
Yeah.
this barrier, isn't it? It's this barrier of not being able to, and I know what it probably
It's
is. It's
fear.
like, sorry?
It's fear, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
fear of speaking out and then finding that the other person doesn't agree or doesn't understand what you're saying or feels that you might be a bit forward. All those sort of ego issues that come into play just make us feel like we can't actually step over that barrier and go, do you know what? I really like it when.
Yeah. And they think they'll offend them as well. It's got to be said from love and from the heart kind of way,
Yeah.
like either just moving the hand, or what I find is talking can sometimes, like if I was to say, oh, that hurts, or and then the other one saying, oh, is it better like this? And then the moment goes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So that's another problem, is like you really want to say something, but it's like, oh, the moment's going to go, and that's going to take them out of their, especially if they find it difficult. Like some men either come too quick or they come too slow, and those that come too slow, you break their thought pattern,
Yeah.
and then they go back to square one again. So
Yeah.
sometimes actually it can be difficult because you don't
Yeah.
want to lose the
Absolutely.
moment.
Yeah. Sorry if I looked a little bit distracted, but it just got me thinking about a TikTok video that I'd seen about the clitoris. And
Ah,
there's I think she might be a doctor, but it's worth looking on TikTok because she explains exactly where the clitoris is, and it's way bigger an area than you think, and about the G spot as well. So if anybody wants some tips on what the clitoris, where it actually is and how to find various bits, watch TikTok. Just type in
don't
clitoris
you
and it will come up.
worry, Anne, because I have got plenty of guests coming on in the next, right through until next March,
Awesome.
and we're going to talk about the clitoris and the erogenous zones, all that stuff too,
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
the experts there. Yeah, so yeah,
Yeah.
everybody look out for that for sure. So what I wanted to ask you as well is, what are the typical issues caused by non-communication of sex?
I guess really the most important thing is that you just don't feel comfortable while you're having sex.
Yeah.
And then if you don't feel comfortable, you don't relax. And if you don't relax, sex isn't good.
No, that's it. And also part of it is that you're not actually present with it,
Yeah,
are you?
exactly.
You're
Because you're
not
just
present.
wandering off thinking, oh, why doesn't he or she do that? Why are they doing that? That's not quite, oh no, that's not quite the right place, or whatever, so you're not focused on the actual act of having sex. You're focused on the bits that are missing or the bits that are there but not quite right.
So, as that is a problem, like for a lot of people, what can we do to try and encourage communication during sex or around sex? Like if there are issues, like, okay, we've just been talking about sex while it's happening. But what if there is somebody who actually has intimacy issues and they want to do it, but they are so tired of trying and not being able to speak about it? Because that can create a huge disconnection in the relationship when the man, for example, or the woman, either way,
Oh, we've
want to
lost
do
you.
it. And so what can we advise people? So when there's an actual intimacy issue, and let's just say in this particular scenario, it's a woman that has the intimacy issue, and the man has got no idea why the woman doesn't want to do it. I mean, she did it before, so they can't understand why she did it before, and now she's suddenly, does she not love me anymore? Does she not fancy me anymore? And they get a real sense of rejection, and it really does ruin their own confidence. So
Yeah.
there are many, many, many couples in that position, because I see it and I hear about it all the time from my audience in TikTok. So, and I actually had some clients as well. I did have a client, I mean, well, a few clients where that has been a problem. And for me, coaching is the answer, right? Coaching, wouldn't you say coaching is the answer?
There are so many contributing factors to that issue in itself. There's tiredness, there's time of the month, there's the kids have been keeping you on your feet all day and you're just it's trying stuff. Then there's issues between the couples themselves where certainly for most women it's really difficult to just have sex when the communication outside of sex isn't quite right.
You mean like
um
arguments and things like that?
yeah, exactly. Whereas men can, more often than not, men can just switch off and just go, let's
Can't.
just forget it, let's just have sex and let's just get on with it and make up. Whereas lots of women just can't do that. So there's so many contributing factors, but I suppose one of the things that you could do if that isn't the issue is to ask your partner, what can I do that will help us to have a better sex life?
Yeah, great question. So the both of them around that question is to sit each other down together and in
Yeah,
a like a almost like an interview, but I don't mean it as formal as that. I mean just to make
yeah,
sure there's no distractions, make sure you're in somewhere no one can bother you, and
yeah,
actually to say, uh, like, because some people just say it like just like that, and that just doesn't work, does it, Anne? You've got to
no,
sit there and you've got to say, okay, I'm going to talk to you about something that is really difficult for me to say. I'm finding it so hard. I found it so hard to discuss, but I'm going to talk to you about it. And what I'd like you to do is to listen to me first, to just listen, to hear me out. And then when I've said my bit, and not to interrupt me, because a lot of people interrupt, don't they? To say at the beginning, don't interrupt me. And actually, what we're saying here is typical for all conversations, not just about
yeah,
sex.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. And to
It's about
say,
owning your bit, isn't it? And starting the conversation with something positive is good. So I really love it when you do this, it doesn't do anything for me. Or when you're in this area, I would prefer you to be slightly to the left, slightly to the right, a little bit further up, a little bit further down. Are you happy for me to direct you? So that you own the part in it that's yours, and then give them the opportunity to accept your feedback if they want to. Because this is the thing about that question is you have to be prepared to hear the answer.
yeah, that's right. And what
And that's
if
the
though?
toughest bit.
So yeah, it is the toughest bit. And the thing is that I know for me, I don't like conflict. And the way you feel, don't just go overnight. It takes time to work on it. But the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll feel in the end about talking about those things. So the more partners talk to each other about what they like and what they don't like, the better. And the thing is, it's a good idea to have those conversations beforehand, because then when it comes to actually doing it, then you've already told them. But if they still haven't done it right, then you have that conversation again, or just move their arm or leg or face or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But but it is something that people find they're going to offend them. So
Yeah.
so what would you say when you're having that conversation with somebody? What would you say to stop them feeling like they're being rejected, feeling like they're useless and no good? It's all about performance sometimes at the end of the day. And the man feels like they've got to, perform.
Yeah, I suppose there could be so many issues involved in this. It's very difficult to give like a blanket answer to it. But if you concentrate on focusing on the positives, so I love it when you do the dishes. I love it when you touch me there. I love it that you smack my bum. I love it that you wink at me, whatever it might be, because the things that you do like, those are the things you want more of. So if you focus on that, you'll get more of those things. If it's something that you really, really want, but you're not getting, then you have to have that conversation.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing is that during sex, right? This is that is so important. It's like I've had a few partners. In fact, my husband now doesn't say a word, right?
Husband, I love that.
So you don't know if, I mean, obviously I understand if there are children in other rooms, I understand that. But we don't have any children in other rooms, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah,
it's like it's really important, you men, because men don't, I don't know what it is. Women, I think women are more vocal than men, from what I understand. There are some, I mean, there was one, this Afghan man I was with a long, long time ago, that he honestly was like a horse. He was like, "Argh! Oh!" He was like, really, I was like, he's behind me. I was thinking, flipping it. But that's good, you see. I mean, that is too noisy, I think, for other people, even neighbors. But to have a little bit of noise, just to go, even if it's just even that makes
yeah.
such a difference. Because
I think
otherwise,
that
it's like you're just doing something. You've got no idea if it's good or not, you know?
I think the problem with that is that's a historical thing that's ingrained in men, is that it's about safety. It's about being able to procreate but being safe. So fast ejaculation, not making a sound, that's all about not being made visible or audible to your potential attackers. So
Interesting.
yeah, so it's really difficult because you're fighting with that's already there, that's part of the brain, that's been there for centuries. Well, since time began, I guess, since man first walked the earth. I'd probably say that Adam and Eve probably had the same problem.
They probably did. And you know what? My husband's got a lot of back pain at the moment. I was giving him massages to help him before he went to sleep with some anti-inflammatory. Anyway, I'm doing all that to his back pain. He's going, oh, like this. He's going, oh, that's great. And I said, so you can say it when I'm doing a massage, but you can't say it when we're in bed together. He goes, oh yeah. It's like they don't even realize.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
amazing. It's
yeah,
amazing. So, you know what? I think that a lot, in fact, all relationships that fail, the one thing, I mean, obviously the ego's got a lot to do with it, and understanding, wouldn't you agree? It's because you've done the same work as me, the
yeah,
understanding of the ego and how it's trying to keep you safe, and you get triggered, don't you, from when you're a child, something happens to you traumatically,
yeah.
and someone will innocently say something to you, and you will see it as like
It
a red
reignites the
rag to
triggers. Yeah,
rule, and it's realizing that the person that has said that is understanding that that's actually a trigger, and the person that's been triggered understands that actually it's nothing to do with that person. They've said something very innocently.
yeah,
So again, although it's doing the work of understanding what the ego is and how it keeps you safe and how it triggers you to stop doing something or say something or get really frightened or whatever, if apart from learning that, it's communication. Like, for example, with my husband now, I mean, I've actually said thank you to the ex-wife, because she's actually done a lot of work already on him because of his upbringing. Yeah, she's done a lot of work, but obviously I'm doing the next stage of his development, I guess. And he I've understood my ego, where none of the relationships have ever worked through the years, because I've got this pattern where when I get close to someone, something will happen. They will say something or do something, and I'm self-sabotaging, but obviously I'm completely unconscious to it. And actually, when they do that, let's say they pick their nose or whatever, it's like, that's a no-brainer. That's it. Finish. And literally within a day, it's all over. And now I know that it's me sabotaging that relationship. So that I don't get smothered, because that's what used to happen to me. Is I'd go, I now know I was smothered with love, which obviously is a good thing. But my little 2-year-old brain, or whatever brain I had at that time, whether it's 2, 3, whatever, I felt suffocated. And so my ego is sabotaging relationships so I don't get suffocated again. Now I know that now. And then at 55, I mean, I'm 58 now, but 55 years old, I learned that. And now I'm in a relationship where I'm communicating with my husband, and I explain to him all this. So when he says something or does something, it hasn't happened for a long time, I have to say, but I've saved my relationship 9 times, because I've been able to first of all understand what's going on, but I've communicated that with him. And then when it's happening, I say, oh my God, that's it, it's happening, this is not going to go anywhere now, this is it. This would normally, now I understand, so I'm saying, right, this would normally break up the relationship, but he knows now. So between the two of us, he says, okay, just let it pass. This is that, your ego, just let it pass. This is not going to ruin the relationship. We're going to, right. And it passes, right? That
really
is
giving you certainty.
Yeah. And it's
really, that's really impressive.
Well, the thing is, you see, is if everybody knew this little piece of information that you learn about your own psyche, your own ego, it changes the relationship a hell of a lot. So honestly, I wouldn't be with Greg today if I didn't know that information, and if I didn't know the work we do to know how to communicate. And that's why, isn't it, that coaching is so important, because you see, what happens is people communicate in the same way they've always communicated, but it doesn't get them anywhere, because that's the same old pattern, the same old words, the same old environment, the same old everything that they've done before, and clearly it's never worked. So by changing that pattern, changing the way you think, and I always say, Greg will come into me, right? I'm asking, I don't know what it is. It's when I'm all talking about something to do with a computer, and you come in and it makes him really wound up. I still have to do a childhood incident on that childhood experience to see what it is. But he'll come in and he'll start getting wound up, and I say, are you talking to me with love and from the heart? And he'll go, and it'll like slap him out of it, and he'll go, no. He said that once, by the way. Otherwise, he just snaps out of it and just changes the way he speaks. But he'll go away and he'll come back when he's talking to me, when he's calmed down and talking to me with love from the heart. Now, that's the same with sex and communication. Is you can't be saying, oh, you keep doing it like that, stop doing it like that, or whatever in sex. And I know so many men that have come to me, and when they can't come, for example, she'll say, what's the matter with you? Why aren't you? What's going on?
Well,
that's the worst.
That is what's the matter with him, because she probably talks to him like that.
Exactly. And it's just so dysfunctional, isn't it? And that poor man, next time he's thinking, oh my God, it makes him worse, because all he's thinking about is performance after that. And instead of like being present in the moment and just capturing that sexy moment during that few hours, minutes, whatever it takes, all he's thinking about then is, oh my God, I've got to make sure I come quicker. It just doesn't work. And the same the other way around when it's too quick. If the woman says that, and I always remember, it's something actually I've always been very aware of. But yeah, so actually during my marriage, he used to make me feel absolutely dreadful. So I remember if I didn't go down on him properly, he would literally walk out the room. Like, how can you do that to somebody? It's just,
well, that's a narcissist.
yeah, exactly. And it was just, and I was like, oh my God, he's just walked out. And of course, every time after that, it was a real issue for me, because you see, to be honest, he probably, even though it was you always have there's always something good that comes out of a bad situation. And in actual fact, what he did is he made me really good. And after that, people used to comment on how I used to do it, because it was, for them, it's like, oh my God.
About what you just said, actually, it's made me remember that, and this goes across the board in relationships, all relationships and life, is that we all have expectations. So your husband had an expectation that you would give him, can I say BJ?
Yeah, go on. Yeah.
In the way he expected. And that is basically what happens when two people come together. We have expectations about what a relationship should be, could be, must be, is, whatever. And those expectations are very rarely met because we meet somebody who has got a different set of values, has been brought up in a different way, just has a different thought process, whatever, and different ideas about what a relationship is. So we have to remember that sometimes we have expectations that won't always be met, and they can transfer into the bedroom as well, or wherever it is that you have sex, because I know it's not always the bedroom.
Yeah. Well, no. That's another podcast. That is what's very interesting is with what you're saying is that it's very true about expectations. And you know, there are some men, and this is young men, by the way, and this is when I was doing my 15 years of being a cougar. They would ask me straight away, what do you like then? What position do you like? And I was like, okay. There is a time and a place, but I know what it is with them. They're trying to turn themselves on. They love to know what. So it's not. So when they ask those questions, it's not about a loving relationship and really wanting to know what you like. It's because they just want to get off on it. And in actual fact, and in fact, with those conversations, I used to just say, look, I'm not okay at first, right at the beginning, when I was all like in my sexual peak, I didn't mind. And in fact, oh my God, once I remember, I'm not even going to say what job I was in, right, because people will know, but I was sitting there and they were texting me, and they were saying all these things they would do to me, and I would literally get soaking wet, and I had to stop him talking to me. I said, you've got to stop it. I said, I can't be doing this. I'm working. I'm doing a serious job here, and I can't be wet all the time. It's just not right. So I had to stop that. But yeah, for long distance relationships, that's quite good. But you know what? It got to the point where it's like, okay, let's just stop doing the text here. I want to touch you. I need to touch you. And so that's quite good to know what people want, because then you, in those texts, or even if it's a long distance like Zoom call, there are some people that just, have like Zoom sex, I suppose you could call it, or Skype sex. It was Skype
phone
sketch
sex,
once.
Phone sex.
Yeah. But it's but it gets to the but it gets to the point where you just need to have it. But in a way, that could be the answer to couples that need to talk. Instead of being face to face touching each other, it may well be that you be separate places and you talk like that, and you get going that way and learn about each other that way. It could be an easy way of doing it. I mean, if you live together, then actually go away and separate from each other and go somewhere else and do Zoom and just talk about it like that, because I think that is a really for me especially, it was a really good way of getting those juices going, Anne. So when you actually get together, my God, it's like fireworks, like this explosion thing behind me. Absolute explosion.
Thinking back to your question actually about communicating about sex and sitting down and talking about it, one of the things that some of my couples find useful is to sit wherever you can in the house, where one of you is kind of on one wall and the other one is 90-degree angles. I'm talking here, so one is in one place and one is in the other, but you can hear each other and speak to each other, but you're not actually looking at each other, so that it removes the discomfort of, I need to say something and I'm worried about what their reaction might be. You don't see the reaction, you just hear the answer. It takes away a sense, because you can't see them. That's quite good. And that will also transfer into what you're saying, that okay, it may not be at a distance if you're just around the corner, but you can do the same thing. You're not seeing each other, but you can express your need to be together and be intimate from a distance that way as well.
You know what it reminds me of, Anne? A confession. When you go to the priest and you confess, it's the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah, but the priest can see your face, you just can't see his.
Yeah, exactly.
Although I did find a trick to do that when I used to go to confession. If you get really, really close to the mesh thing that they have there, you can see him. So you know which priest you're confessing to. And then I would always choose what I would confess.
Oh my goodness. Well, listen.
Religion and sex, because because religion depicts sex as a bad thing, then of course you feel like you've got to confess about sex to the priest, and that must be quite hard for people to mix that confession sort of mentality with just being free and having sex as
It
they want to.
is. It is. And luckily things are changing because I mean, I don't know if it's whether it's because the men just wanted me get me into bed, but I used to say I used to sleep first time with people and I think, oh God, I should be doing it. But it's like men do it. Why can't girls do it? And it didn't do me any harm. It actually helped me. I mean, I couldn't do the job I'm doing now if I hadn't done all that because it's
No,
all about
exactly.
sex for me, isn't it?
And
And I learned
we
loads
need
about it.
people that have got that experience to help all of us who don't have the same experience and need that assistance. So other sex coaches have gone through probably something similar, or they've done a lot of research with people like you who have got a lot to tell and they've done their research. So therefore, you know, they can share your experience through them or someone else's experience through them, to help others who aren't as free.
Yeah, and the thing is, you see, is I was in the same place as them because I couldn't discuss it,
Yeah.
especially. I went to Sunday school, didn't I? And I learned that it's for naughty girls. Like it's not a good, no good girls do that. So you know, I felt I actually thought I couldn't enjoy it. I wasn't allowed to enjoy it. And so I'm really grateful that my sexual peak came along because that liberated me completely. And I remember thinking, oh, fuck it. I'm just going to let go. And you don't realize you're actually holding on. It's like you're actually stopping yourself. It's really weird because the moment I let it go, I thought, oh, and actually what it was is I relaxed. That's what actually happened is I relaxed like that. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, this is what it should feel like. But that's because I got the sexual peak. That is what helped me. I felt like I needed oiling, and that gave me the oiling that I need to just
Yeah.
be smooth and just let go and everything like that. And the thing is, you see, there's so many women who are my age and older that have never experienced proper sex and I don't mean like, well, yeah, dirty sex too, because there's nothing wrong with that either, but a loving, proper making love between a couple. And really, it's only when I met Greg after I'd been through all well, no, actually, I was still in my sexual peak when I met him, but I'd gone through all of that and let myself go so that when I was with him, it's almost as if, Anne, I was preparing myself for him because I actually understood making love because I actually felt love whilst
Yeah.
making it, and I'd never ever felt that before. And I think that for me was a massive turning point. I was so excited about it. I couldn't believe it. I said, "Did you feel it?" I said, "Did you feel it? Did you feel it?" And he goes, "Yeah, yeah, but he'd felt it before." Even though he has his own issues, he actually, because the woman, the wife he had before, he was absolutely, totally in love with, and he said he felt that too. I actually think everybody feels love in a different way.
Yeah,
Everyone's
of course.
individual, and
Yeah.
that's just the way I felt it. And maybe what I was describing was, I don't know, it sounded like when I was describing it. I mean, I actually couldn't describe it now. It's just such an unusual feeling that he said, oh, he had it before. But maybe it was something slightly different. Maybe the way I understood it was different, but everybody experienced that in a different way. And I feel sorry for those that have not been able to experience that closeness during sex because of their own ego that's stopping them from it's breaking through it. And the only way to break through it is through doing the healing that we do, which is like to find the actual memory. I mean, in some cases, it could be a multitude. Might not be one memory. It could be multitude. Because at the end of the
Yeah,
day, when
absolutely.
we're growing up, it's the repeat of that message that
Yeah,
we get into our head, isn't it? So
absolutely. Well, talking
it,
of that, because I want to touch on something that you said in that last part of the conversation where you mentioned naughty girl and how that has become sort of an accepted description of women who have sex, children who are doing something naughty. It doesn't make them a naughty girl or a naughty boy. The thing they're doing is naughty. So that's another sort of tip, really, is to stop considering things naughty, or people naughty, because it's not the people that are naughty, it's the thing that they do. So for example, you could have somebody who's really, really kind, but has no money and stole some bread and some beans from the shop. That's a naughty thing to do, but actually they're still quite a good, kind person. They were just desperate. So if we're labeling people and just label the issue, then we are taking another step forward to accepting that people aren't naughty necessarily. What they do is naughty.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sex isn't naughty.
Well, exactly. Sex is not naughty. It is something that it's
personal.
Yeah, but it's something that we've all been given to multiply, and they've made the way that we multiply on this planet a very enjoyable activity. And actually, what I don't understand, Anne, is that the Romans, they didn't worry about stuff like that. They were very, very open. They had brothels all over the place. In fact, in Pompeii, they found these little rooms which would have probably had a curtain in front, just in the street, with this slab of big block with like a bit that looked like a pillow, where people could just go in and just have sex whenever they wanted. They would even do it. I mean, even the Egyptians had, I'm not saying this is right, but they had incest. There was no, what I'm trying to say, there was no barrier with sex. And so where on earth did this made up thing that sex is not something that you should do? I mean, with the religion, with priests, I mean, Jesus had Magdalene, what's her name again? Magdalene, I can't remember her name, but you know what I mean.
Mary Magdalene.
That's the one, Mary Magdalene. He had her, and he actually had children. But so why on earth has the Catholic religion decided that sex is a bad thing? And
is it the Catholic? I mean, I don't honestly know where that came from, to be honest. But I think just generally anyway, just the media, that we're all instilled with fear wherever we look.
We are.
Wherever we look. And
we
so
are.
If you don't tell anyone how many times you have sex, who you have sex with, where you have sex, who knows? Unless you are with somebody who's going to take pictures and videos and post it publicly, which obviously be careful of that. But unless somebody knows exactly how many people you've slept with, or where you have sex, or how many times you have sex, it's your personal information that nobody needs to know. They don't know how many times you go to the toilet. They don't know how many times you eat food in a day. Why do they need to know how many times you have sex or who it's with? It's personal.
Yeah, there are some men at the beginning, like during that 15 years of me going crazy, wanted to know how many men I'd had. I'd say, I'm not going to tell you. It's none of your business.
Yeah,
none of your business. And maybe, I mean, saying how many men is one thing, but talking about previous relationships so that it helps you with another relationship, because I find that does help sometimes. I mean, I asked Greg all about his wives, all of them, the 2 wives, not got 6 like Henry, 2 of them, right? And at first he found it quite difficult, because many women be very, very jealous about them talking about that, about even the thought of them being with another man. But I'm not like that. I learned from it. And the amount of questions and he doesn't ask me a single thing about mine, not one question, because he doesn't need to know. He always says to me, if you want to talk to me about it, then I'm ready to listen, but I will never ask. And that's just the way he's been brought up. It's always about the way we've been brought up, eh?
Well, yeah, there is that. But also, I mean, I think you're quite unique. I don't think there's a lot of people like you who want to know and feel like they can learn from previous relationships.
You're right.
So most of the time it is in the past and it's irrelevant to the relationship now, and your mentality is good around it, and that's great. But for the people that don't have that mentality, talking about past relationships makes you attract somebody going through a similar sort of issue. So then when all of that is clear and those relationship problems are gone with the past relationship, you have nothing in common anymore. And that's why often second marriages fail, because they've talked so much about the problems that they've had with the previous partner. That has been their thing in common. And then when that's gone and it's all cleared and the dust has settled, they're like, why am I with this person?
How interesting.
We
Wow.
don't have enough in common. So yeah, it is quite, sometimes it's not worth having that conversation. But if they're, for anybody who's like you, Caroline, and is prepared to learn from previous relationships and issues that have come up, then yes, by all means ask those questions. But if you aren't ready to hear the answers and
No,
you aren't ready
definitely
to
not.
learn those answers, don't ask those questions about previous relationships. It's not going to help you.
No, no, and the thing is, you see, is that because he's told me about the other relationships, I've been able to help him understand why that broke up.
Yeah.
And he says to me things like, "Wow," he said, "I've never thought about it like that." He goes,
Yeah.
"And you know what he's actually said to me, Anne? I don't blame them now. I understand completely why they split up with me."
So he's
So,
learned. He's
oh, he's
learned as
definitely
well.
learned.
And
Yeah, yeah.
that's massive. But probably for about probably 80 to 85% of the population, they're not ready to learn about themselves.
No,
It's
they're not.
all about what the other person is doing wrong. And this is
All
what I come
external, all external.
time
Instead of
and
looking
time again.
inside.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's everything else that's going wrong, everything else that's happening. You couldn't possibly be wrong because they do this wrong and they do that wrong and they don't do this and they don't do that and they always or never do this, that, or the other. So the most important thing is to look at yourself.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, that is the end. Thank you so much, Anna. It's been really, always enjoy conversations with you anyway.
Likewise.
So listen, if you can give them one tip that you can give them before we close, and then I'd like you to say your social media so they can contact you if they want to.
Yeah, one tip. We're going to go communication on sex. Yeah, one tip. Yeah, to ask that question, what can I do to make our sex life better?
Yep. Okay, cool, brilliant. And
Yeah.
now, if you could give us your social medias, and then anyone wants to
Yeah,
contact you,
you
they
can find me
can.
on LinkedIn as Anne Skelton. You can find me on Facebook as Anne Skelton on my page. And you can find me on Instagram as the relationship coach, the _ relationship _ coach, I think. Don't quote me on that, but I have got my picture. What else is there? I am on TikTok and I'm also on Twitter. TikTok, the relationship coach, Twitter, the relationship coach.
Brilliant,
Right,
brilliant.
just one more thing before we go is to remember, if you ask that question, you know, what can I do to make our sex life better? Be prepared to hear the answer, because
Yes.
it might not be what you think it is, and it might be something that either you're not comfortable with doing or hadn't realized. So it is important to learn from the answers to that question.
Very good. I'm glad you added that bit. And that bit is so important. And
Yeah,
wow. Okay, so thank you so much, Anne. Thank you so
thank
much.
you.
And you take care, Anne. And
Yeah,
to
you too.
everybody, and see you next time.
Yeah,
And
have a
here's to
great day.
your, have a great day. Here's the sex. What do I say? Your success. Bye.
Bye.